Welcome to our Zaption for CS 2.2, comparing and scaling rates. Make sure that you've completed the problems on page 8, and then please use this Zaption to help you correct your work. Maralah can drive her car 580 miles at a steady speed using 20 gallons of gasoline. We're going to start by completing this rate table. So take a moment and see if you can fill in the values that are missing. You might have started by thinking about how many miles she could drive on 1 gallon of gas, and you could approach that a lot of different ways. You might think about, for example, a proportion. So if she can go 580 miles on 20 gallons of gas, how many miles can she go on 1 gallon? And so here I see I have a scale factor of 1/20th because I want to divide by 20, and so 580 times 120 would give me 29. So she can drive 29 miles on 1 gallon of gas. If she has 2 gallons of gas, she can go twice that far. So I'm going to go ahead and add another 29, and I get 58. For 3 gallons of gas, 87. For 4, 116. For 5, 145. For 6, 174. For 7, 203. For 8, 232. For 9, 261. And for 10, 290. And again, it's good to check along the way and make sure that this works. These are proportional values, so they have a proportional relationship, so they have scale factors. So again, if I want to go from 1 to 10, that would be times 10. So then over here, 29 times 10, I notice also makes 290. So now I'm going to find the 2 unit rates, and we found one of them from the table. You talked a little bit about unit rates today in class, and you talked about how a unit rate has to have a 1 in the denominator as the bottom number. So we've already found 29 miles per gallon, 1 gallon. That's 1 unit rate. But there's another unit rate we could write in this situation, and that would be how many gallons per mile. Now, we don't usually talk about gallons per mile a lot as a unit rate, but it's good to recognize that it's another unit rate that exists. So to find that, I'm going to set up, let me erase that part here. I'm going to set up 20 gallons over 580 miles equals how many gallons for 1 mile. And so you'll notice it's the same as this proportion up here, except I've just flipped it over, and now I've put a 1 with miles instead of a 1 with gallons. And so now to find this scale factor, it's going to be a little different. This is going to be times 1 over 580 so that I can divide by 580. And so when I go ahead and put that into my calculator to check, so 20 divided by 580, I get a pretty small number, and I'm going to round just to the nearest hundredth. I get about 3/100ths of a gallon per mile. So again, these are 2 unit rates that describe the situation. It's most common probably to talk about how many miles per gallon I get. However, I could also talk about how many gallons per mile. In that case, this is about 3/100ths of a gallon per mile. So now let's see the next problem. So now we're ready to graph some points on coordinate grids. And you might be thinking there's only 1 grid involved here, but let's see if we can help you figure out why there's 2. So there was one rate that was 29 miles per gallon. And there was another unit rate of 3/100ths of a gallon per mile. So we're going to have a graph for each one of those. And so the part when you say per gallon, that is going to be what goes on our x-axis. So in this graph, miles is going to go on the y-axis, and then per gallon, gallon is going to go on the x. So I'm going to have my gallons go up by 1s, just to make it simple. I'm going to go all the way up to 10 gallons. And then my rate was 29. So just to make it simple again, I'm going to go up by 29s. And so I've got 29 plus 29 gives me 58, and 87. 116, 145, 174, 203, 232, 261, and 290. I'm going to just go ahead and stop there. So now if it's 29 miles per gallon, that means each time gallon goes up by 1, I'm going to 29 miles. So 1 gallon, 29 miles. 2 gallons, 58 miles. 3 gallons, 87 miles. And so you might be noticing that this line is going to go just like this all the way up. And it's going to pass through each one of those points, including 290 and 10. And so it's important to start noticing that if it is a proportional relationship, which is what we're focusing on in this unit, it's going to have a straight line. And because it's a straight line, that means it has a constant rate of change. And because it's a proportional relationship, it will also always go through the point 0, 0. So now let's see if we can figure out the other graph. Now it's gallons per mile. So we're going to put mile on the x-axis, or miles, and gallons on the y-axis. And this time it's per mile, so I'm actually going to go up by 1s on the bottom for miles. I'm just going to go to 10 again. And if you think about it, 1 gallon made us go 29 miles. So it should make sense to you that if I'm only going 1 mile, I'm only using a tiny, tiny amount of gas. In this case, 3/100ths of a gallon. So I'm actually going to go up by 3/100ths over here. So 3/100ths, 6/100ths, 9/100ths. Good practice with adding decimals. Plus 3 more hundredths would be 12/100ths, 15/100ths, 18/100ths, 21/100ths, 24/100ths, 27/100ths, and 30/100ths. And so now I'm going to go ahead and connect these together. So it's 3/100ths of a gallon per mile. So again, 1 mile, that's at 3/100ths. 2 miles, that's plus another 300, so I'm at 6. 3 miles, now I'm at 9/100ths. And so notice again, this line's just going to go nice and straight all the way up. And again, it's a proportional relationship, so it's a straight line and it passes through 0, 0. We also call 0, 0 the origin. And so those are the two graphs you should have. I know it takes some time to set those up, but it's really important to think through what they mean and why they work. So in the beginning, we found 2 unit rates, 29 miles per gallon and 3/100ths of a gallon per mile. So now I'm going to write 2 equations. One is going to start with miles, m equals, and I'm going to multiply by the number of gallons. And so if I look at my unit rates, one of these is per gallon. So I'm going to be finding the number of gallons to multiply by. And so in this case, miles is going to be 29 times the number of gallons. Because again, G is gallons. If I have 3 gallons of gas, then I'm doing 3 times 29 to find how many miles I can go. I can also write an equation that starts with G equals. So again, G is the gallons. And I'm here, because I know it's 3/100ths of a gallon per mile, I'm going to take 3/100ths and multiply times m, the number of miles. So notice for both of these, they have a constant here. And we're going to start to call that a constant of proportionality. It's kind of like a scale factor. You could see it on the graphs on the page right before, but it's going to be really, really important sometimes with equations to think about which constant you've been given and how it relates to the 2 variables. The last homework problem you have here is to use one equation to find how many miles she can travel using 14 gallons of gas. So I'm solving for miles, so I want to pick the equation that has m equals, and m equals 29g. So m equals 29 times 14. So in this case, I've got 14 times 29. This gets me to 406 miles. All right, that's it for today. I hope tomorrow you come ready to talk more about unit rates, what makes something a proportional relationship, and what is a constant of proportionality.